As you guys know, I've been making my rounds talking about every possible topic regarding sweep. Now, sweep got a new mode, as you guys are now knowing, right? I mean, after this many videos, I hope so. Essentially, 200 million HP, still the same turn limit. They do more damage. They could do 3 attacks in a turn. And if you're off type advantage, it's 300% more damage. And also attack immunity, like the one that Dwayne Gojo has, does not work, and it's blocked in phase 2 and 3. So if you've played normal sweep, you know how it works. And now you do get cubes, so this is a true game mode that deserves its own tier list, because probably 3 times a year, 2 to 3 times a year, we're going to be getting 4,000 cubes from this, right? 1,000 cubes for each one, so you're going to want to complete it. So this is why we're doing a ranking in today's video. 1,000 cubes per, so I think it's pretty important. And why am I doing this kind of intro? Because so many people go on a video, guys, I do a tier list. One of the comments is, what is sweep? So I hope it's clear, this is sweep. You guys have experienced it, you see it. 17 turns, 3 phases, 200 million HP. Let's rank the units. So here we go. Before we get into the rankings, which is only a top 20, usually I do top 25, 30, but sweep, even some units in the top 20 are not that good in sweep. It's crazy. There's not that many good units. So first of all, I'm counting unfeatured pool DPS as a 5. So for example, Toji, red Yuji, green Yuji, I'm all counting a 5. If they're not a 5, doesn't matter. Just for this tier list, that's what I'm counting. Unfeatured pool support, a2. So yellow Yaga, right? I mean, I guess you could say blue Momo, right? Blue Kamo, something like that, a2. Then we got everyone else a1. So essentially the new units, even limited, so Zonji, Choso, Honored 1, everyone's A1. This is kind of accounting for both free-to-play and low spenders, as now we have daily single pulls. You could get a lot of dupes from that, so A1 is much more possible, and everyone does end up getting some dupes over the course of a year, and you could put those in limited. So we're counting everyone else A1. Hard sweep only. I'm not counting tower. Tower is going to get its own ranking next, or this month actually, because in 2 weeks we're getting more tower floors, probably 81 to 100. And this is basically accounts for teams and the boss. So like, is your team good or is it bad? And we know how blue is, so you already have an answer on that, right? How hard it is, and an arbitrary value that I'm placing of how much you are contributing to the team. This is very important to keep in mind. So let's take all this information in and start ranking these units in sweep. So it's single target. Each boss has its gimmick. Now I will say, just real quick, the 2 hardest bosses, before we start, just so people understand, 2 hardest bosses, or I guess you could say this one is this one's annoying because it could apply blind on you, or darkness I should say, but you know, it's RNG, doesn't really matter that much. The green boss, this one, when you use your green units, Jujutsu lower is so annoying. The confusion is so annoying. This might be the worst boss. This one's pretty annoying, but you know, it's more the units right now, and the rat just does like a lot of damage. That's his main thing. It's just damage. It's crazy. But the green boss remains the hardest. So let's go into this and start ranking everyone. So we're gonna go through this. So I just want to make one on top just to make sure it's clear. This is like very important. Kaido reigns above. He literally, there's like no way he's ever gonna go bad unless they literally ban this guy. He's always going to be good in every single mode for sweep. He reigns above all as the honored one. Okay, Kaido is the honored one. He is that good. Now, I should have had this open before, but why is he that good? Essentially, because he gives the cursed energy, and he could basically, you do this twice and then usually you die. And this is essentially 76 extra CE that you get, which is very needed for rotations. And since it's only 17 turns where you're trying to do maximal damage, it's needed. So now let's go into the 1 to 5 range. Choso's number 1. While green has difficulties clearing, yes, I said it, because there's a Jujutsu lower, right? Green, and I mean Choso in particular, is still really just that good. He is the one carrying the most for his team, right? He's doing so much. This skill 3 is amazing. The ult is amazing. His ult gauge being 1300 is amazing. He debuffs while doing very good damage. So he's number 1 in sweep. Now, you could definitely argue a couple for number 1, but this is the one I'm putting in number 1 because no one matches. No one does both the damage he's doing and the debuffs he's doing at the same time for all 17 turns, while having the chance to damage reduction. This is the best thing. If you get lucky, like obviously in optimal settings, but if you get lucky, this damage reduction is going to proc on a good amount of your attacks. and it's going to make him busted because sometimes you're getting hit 3 times in one turn and you could lose 20k HP. Choso could make 20k HP into like 6 or 7,000. Fuck me for saying that. Anyway, let's go on to Domain Gojo for number 2. So Domain Gojo is still very good. Could use off color, right? He could. Now, thing is, he's counted A1, so there is that, because for Gojo especially, Domain Gojo, the HP helps him. I think if he was A0, he'd probably maybe be lower. Now, why am I saying that? Because keep in mind, the attack immunity in sweep is blocked, right? They remove attack immunity in sweep, so he can be hit. Now, that could help him get alt gauge, to be fair. It could help him get his alt gauge quicker, so keep that in mind. This is still very good. The fact he could do a lot of damage is still very good. So, you know, even with everything, he's still number 2. Personally, I see Choso as above Domain Gojo. If you want to make the argument otherwise for sweep, you go ahead. Can Domain Gojo work off of color? Yes. Is that something I'm really counting? Not really. I'm just seeing the maximal output. Domain Gojo, even if he could work on other colors, it's not something I'm factoring into this personally, right? Unless you're Kaido, right? Kaido, it's a different story. He's doing something no one else in this game does. But, you know, and Domain Gojo isn't really needed for the other colors besides blue, but, you know, blue isn't really doing much anyway, because yellow has Kusakabe, so you don't need Domain Gojo, right? So keep that in mind. Then green has Choso. So once again, you don't need Domain Gojo. Now, can you run Domain Gojo? Yes. Are you going for high clears with Domain Gojo? No. So Domain Gojo is number 2. He's not in sweep for some maximum type of shit. Even on color, usually Team Nanami works better than Domain Gojo. That's something I want to preface. Team Nanami does work better, obviously, because of the consistency that you do need. So next up is Zonji. We all know it. Zonji's insane. Now, something I do want to stress, with Kusakabe, Zonji's release, or Zonji's potential has been kind of heightened, because remember, when you ult, right, you have 2 turns of zone state. You're able to kind of ult, and you're going to get back your ult gauge while you're doing your big 3 turns. So this means after you do 1 ult, you're going to be able to get 2 more. So in total, you get 3 rotations. 3 rotations. Now, the problem is with Degumi before, is Degumi could only help for 2 rotations. Usually he comes in at turn 3, ults at about, I think like turn, I would like to say 6, but then it goes to turn 10. Getting 3 Degumi ults is impossible. Getting 3 Zonji ults is possible. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because then you bring Kusakabe into the equation, and Zonji has a 3rd zone state that could actually have the maximum multiplicative values, where with Degumi, you could only make use of his debuffs for Zonji for 2, where with Kusakabe, the damage increase could be used for all 3, which is why Kusakabe is a huge buff to Zonji, who's able to do insane turns. This 250% Black Flash damage, literally 3.5 times is the damage on this 1500, which is insane. It does, like, this ult does insane damage considering you're following up with 2 more turns that could do like 20 million each turn easily, right? If you Black Flash, it's over. It's game over, right? Now, I know we could get unlucky, that's for sure, but you know, if you hit even 1, you're chilling. His CE management is very good because of the fact when he Black Flashes, he gets CE, and I really like this guy. Amazing. The break damage also is huge, because for the yellow boss, one thing the yellow boss has is it puts damage reduction. So if you're able to break, it's going to stop that damage reduction. Shoko doesn't really need an introduction. The buff constantly while being able to give the ult gauge for Zonji is huge, and then healing on the passive is amazing. I've already talked a lot about her, but because of that passive heal where she doesn't need to pause to heal and the passive does it for her automatically, it's great because she continues buffing, and the ult gauge charge rate alongside Zonji is impeccable. Now, you might be surprised, but Kusakabe is number 5, and it's for every reason I just explained with Zonji. Essentially, with Zonji, especially because of sweep, we're counting, remember, the team, right? The team. So when you count that in, Kusakabe gives Zonji the ability to make 3 zone states count. Now, you might be like, oh, but for the 2nd zone state, you wouldn't be able to make use of pots because it would still be on cooldown. You're right, but guess what? You don't even need it. What's crazy is you don't need it. Like, dead, I'm not kidding. It's crazy to think. But Zonji doesn't even need pots to be active, right? For that 2nd zone state to be good, because Kusakabe is helping carry that up to where that 2nd zone state is still actually going to do something. And I've seen it done stuff, right? These 3 units are so good together. You'll see that, I mean, Kusakabe also is doing like 2 to 2.5 million per turn. So it's beautiful. That consistency that you get from Kusakabe is unmatched. I really like him in sweep. And in tower, he's going to be at a similar ranking because he has other parts that we're going to talk about his kit. But for right now, we're only talking about the damage portion, but he has a lot of utility afterwards. So very good unit. You could check out the showcase if you want to see more on why I ranked him that high. So Nanami, very good. Almost as consistent as Kusakabe, if not as consistent. Very good damage overall, bit lower than Kusakabe. This ult is pretty good, right? I will definitely say that. What helps him is this CE and getting 5 CE per turn negates or helps out the cost of the skills, right? Especially with the ult, you save the CE from not using a skill because it plays into the rotation, and then because you crit on this, you get 5 CE. It works pretty well. Now Nanami has guaranteed crits, and this is something I want to mention. Same thing as Kusakabe. Both Kusakabe and Nanami can make use of this rec bit, which they both want to crit, and also they both want to give taijutsu to their allies. And guess what? 60% extra taijutsu that you could give to your Toji or to your Zonji, which is why Nanami is amazing. Now, Teen Shoko dropped a bit, mainly because her heals are not that strong on the ult. She's only ulting twice, so it's not that much healing when you want to have burst of heals. And also, it's just because green is so much harder. Yellow Shoko, her heals are they work a lot better. Green, also, you're not breaking the enemy, so you're taking more damage. And Teen Shoko has to really go out of her way to heal sometimes. If your Teen Ghetto might take 20k in a turn, and then, oh, well, I can't heal because I can't just use a skill heal because then I'm not buffing. So that becomes a problem. So she does lose value in here compared to Yellow Shoko. Yellow Shoko does go above Teen Shoko in this. Next up, Toji. Toji is an incredible unit. He has gained so much value. It's mainly because of the skill 1 pairing so well with Nanami. What I mean is it gives crit res, well, it lowers the enemy's crit res, which lets Teen Nanami have a higher chance to crit, which then plays into the memory, which we were just talking about, the Nanami memory, to then give Toji the taijutsu. So Toji gives Nanami a higher chance to crit. Nanami crits because of Toji, and then Nanami gives the taijutsu to Toji with it, and Nanami also gets the CE because of it. So it plays very well, 300%, and it still does damage. He's very consistent because he has a base 50%, very hard to kill, could dodge, which is also pretty good, and then he could get an extra 25. The 75% taijutsu he could get total allows you to play with some different ways to get some multiplicative buffs. Wait for Yaga. Yaga could be in the backline because you have the damage increase, you have the stat debuff with Megumi, red Megumi, and then Nanami, and then also Toji, what he gives himself, make it so you have all 3 types of damage increases, which is great. His ult could do 15 million even without the rec bit. 1600% is a very strong multiplier, very good crit damage, 80% is amazing. Same thing with this skill too, 120% crit damage is ridiculous on 500%, right? So like 500% might seem a bit low, the crit rate is a bit low for sure, but the crit damage that you're getting, holy, if you crit, this damage is insane. But even without, you could do like 2, 3, 4 million, upwards of 6 million on this skill too. It's very, very good. So Toji is very consistent, one of the best to clear sweep. Next up, red Megumi. Now, why am I putting red Megumi over here? A couple of reasons. He gives a 200% stat debuff, currently the highest in the game. Very good. His damage, also Teen Nanami level. He might be a bit inconsistent with his CE management. Overall, I haven't seen many problems, for the most part. Now, why do I like him? Because he has 50% damage reduction when he has the rapid active, right? And this is amazing. He basically is unkillable. Red sweep could do a lot of damage. My Teen Nanami dies a lot in red sweep. Megumi dying is pretty much impossible, and being able to ult and immediately put 100% debuff with the ult is amazing. So this guy is very good. He does very good damage, upwards of 1.5 million per turn, upwards, of course, not always. So very good unit. Next up, Toji, Yaga. Yaga, the stat debuff is amazing. He has a stat buff, he has a damage increase on the ult, he has a bunch of stat debuffs, he does a lot of damage, he does everything, right? That amount of damage he does is so good with the stat debuffs, it's amazing. And yeah, no, I do really, really like it. He's great, he really is great. And it's crazy now, you might be like, oh, but Kusakabe, Yaga, they do kind of similar things. Now keep in mind, buffs are better for sweep. Why is that? You lose debuffs. When you change phase. You don't lose the buffs. So immediately you're still going to have the max damage buff that Kusakabe gave, where Yaga, you have to build it up over 3 or 4 turns. So keep that in mind. That's another reason why I'm putting Kusakabe above, alongside the fact that Kusakabe is usually the one doing the crits to give Zonji the extra taijutsu, alongside the fact that usually Kusakabe does more damage than Yaga in a run, or about the same, especially because I'm considering Kusakabe a 1. Yes, Kusakabe is doing more damage than Yaga. So more damage, more support in general. You're kind of doing a lot for Zonji to really be boosted up. So that's my opinion. Honored 1 does kind of tank a bit. Main reason is the following. I mean, it's really tough. The green boss is really tough. That nerf is horrible. Remember, attack immunity is blocked. It's blocked. So keep that in mind. That's something very important to consider. So yeah, the problem is also his honored state. You could only go into it on turn 10. Why is that? Because it's a max, or I guess turn 9. It's a max of 8 turns. Because of that, you could only, basically how it goes is you only skill 2 for 9 turns, then you go into skill 3, and then afterwards you only skill 2 to the last turn. But the problem is, sometimes you're going to be confused, so you're not going to do your attack sometimes, and it sucks. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong. The biggest problem is he can't get multiple nukes, whereas Zonji gets multiple nukes, obviously. Toji gets multiple nukes, but because of how Honored 1 works, and because when he ults he loses the stacks, it's never good. You can't even really use this ult more than once. It's very difficult. You can't. I don't think you can, because it's what, like, I think the first one is 1168, then you got to get the full 1363, and then you would have to re-get both to ult again. It's impossible, right? It just is. So it's like, he's consistent. However, because he could be Jujutsu, like, now his damage is lowered. The attack immunity, right, is pierced, right? It's blocked. So he could actually be attacked, he could be debuffed, and it affects him very negatively. Now, it's kind of crazy to even put these two next to each other, but Tinjo is insane, works very well in sweep, could get a 10 out of 10 run at A5, and he literally did a 75 million damage nuke. It's insane. So yes, Tinjo is very, very good. His nukes are insane. That's the main reason. Degumi is still good, right? Degumi is still good. You can still get a 10 out of 10 clear with Zonji with Degumi, but I would definitely say Kusakabe works more effectively on average. Degumi is doing less damage than Kusakabe, another thing. Also, it's a debuff, right? So I think debuffs have less value in this because they reset, where buffs, like, don't. So it's very simple. The buffs that don't reset, way better if you could have it, besides for the stat debuffs, obviously, but you know, it's on average better for it to be a buff, especially for the damage increase. I'd rather the buffs usually. Degumi is still very good, amazing for nuking. Red Yuji also very good, just does really good damage, has his own stat buffs, gives himself ult gauge, and could ult a lot. Very simple. Sukuna falls a lot, obviously his team is ass. Blue, it's pretty much, I don't think anyone has gotten 10 out of 10 on blue. I think the max right now is 150 million out of 200 million, which is insane numbers to even be saying. But yeah, it's pretty much impossible, especially with dots. It's very, very difficult, because if the dots leave when you change phase, like from phase 1 to 2, well, the dots that you apply afterwards, let's say you ult, you kill phase 1, which is a problem. Sukuna has this ability just kills units. It's fine for tower because it's 30 turns, but like this ability, this thing kills units. Cannot charge own ult skill gauge for 3 turns, kills units, especially, like, Zonji doesn't have this. Why does Sukuna need to? Especially because the skill 3, right, this dot, right, that you want to have, it multiplies against other dots. But if you ult and then kill, well, then the dots won't multiply, and then the dot damage is lower. So a lot of things go against him. Also, there's not really a blue stat buffer, so his dot damage is going to be lower, right? Red Yaga is going to die a lot in there, so that's another thing. Now, talking about Red Yaga, still very good unit, still a stat buffer, so still needed. Can he be ran off of red? Yes, he can, definitely. More so on blue, he kind of needs to sometimes. But overall, he still is doing pretty good. Like, just takes 20 CE, very simple. Even his ult is not that bad, so, you know, pretty good unit. Next up, we've got Teen Ghetto. I think you can make the argument for either or. I'm putting Yaga still on 16. I don't really think he's much higher, but stat buffs are very needed in this game, especially for red. It's definitely pretty good. But Teen Ghetto's great. Problem is one thing in specific, especially because mixed damage is becoming more and more common. He could only choose to Jujutsu damage received debuff or Taijutsu damage received debuff. Usually the better debuffers, Yaga and Red Megumi, right? Those two in specific, and even Kamo, right? And Blue Inumaki, right? What they do is both, right? Now, Ghetto does get the edge over someone like Blue Inumaki, and why is that? Because he's green. Blue Inumaki is blue. So that's something to keep in mind. Team Ghetto still does some good stuff, right? He's lucky that both both DPSs right now that are good are Jujutsu and they work on the same team, so that's fine. But sometimes it's a big build-up. The biggest problem is sometimes you want to ult for the combo, but if you ult, guess what? You're not putting the debuff and you're losing a big amount of like actual debuff, so it does suck for that. Next up, Red Nobara. So biggest problem with her is that the nails obviously leave if you kill. Like, let's say you skill 3, right? You ult and the ult kills. You can't skill 3 immediately afterwards because the nail is gone because you're on the new phase. So I think usually debuff units kind of suffer a bit more, especially DPS debuff new units. And it does suck a bit, right? That little things like that could happen. Her damage is still really good. However, compared to Yuji and also Toji, incomparable. Next up, we got Blue Inumaki, and like I said, Blue is just suffering, but Blue Inumaki still does a lot of damage, and the best thing, you might be like, oh, why not Kamo? Well, Kamo's ult is pure damage. Blue Inumaki's ult is damage and a debuff. Biggest thing. Being able to keep it up consistently is very big. Next up, Red Mai, actually, I think it was the first yellow clear. She works pretty well. Her debuffs, because it's only 2 turns and it can max out very quick, is very good, right? Especially for sweeps, it works pretty well. Is she amazing? No, but she's not bad. So definitely there is that. She gets up, I think, to like 320% at max, especially with someone like Zonji could go crazy. But still, she works very well now for Red, because if you consider it, right, the other units you might be running will be Red Megumi, who, guess what, does attacks, right? Tinanami, guess what, does attacks. Toji, guess what, does attacks. So things like that, right? And for yellow, same thing, especially with Kusakabe, like they do attacks. So like you could run her off color, big RNG, but it can work. So these are not in any order now, but essentially we got Blue Jogo. He has a skill 3 that could be spammed 5 times in a row, 5 turns in a row, I should say. So that's 700%, very high values, very good. Overall, decent damage. If there's when he gets, I think, when there's a stat buffer for Blue, I think Jogo will also benefit from it a lot, for sure. Also because of the burn, right? The burn, I think, is for 5 turns. So, you know, it's only 800% here, but then it's another 150% that wants to be multiplied by stat buffs, right? So keep that in mind. Kamo, still very good, very consistent, good damage, right? Can't lose CE pretty much ever. Has the ult gauge charge rate and also just his own self buffs, which does help him a lot. Green Megumi, the follow-ups, if you get lucky with the follow-ups, can go very, very well, but there is RNG involved. Green Yuji has fallen off, mainly because Team Ghetto, remember, he can only buff Jujutsu or Taijutsu, and if you're using Choso, which currently, if we're counting him, like if we're looking at a tier list ranking for the best, like an account with everyone, well, guess what? There's a big problem. You can't run Choso with Yuji and expect them both to do damage, because Team Ghetto can only debuff one of the 2 damage types. So keep that in mind. That's another reason why Yuji is lower. And then finally, Yellow Toji. I do not think he's even that good. I think that like after like Green Megumi and Blue Kamo and Blue Jogo, like not even Blue Jogo, like there's like not even 25 units that are really good, but Yellow Toji is there. I really don't think he's that good, if I'm being honest. Like Yellow Toji's just lucky there's not many units that work in here. Like Momo, just 120% while doing no damage is laughable. Toji's decently consistent. Problem is, there's some problems, right? You can't make use of this buff. Why would a unit want to use a buff that's only 4 turns, right? And it's not even that big. If this was like maybe 100% damage dealt and like 100% crit damage and 40% crit rate, maybe. Problem is, only 40% crit rate. This crit damage, you're barely getting it. You're barely getting it. The skill 3, by the way, 405%. Let's look at something. Kusakabe's skill 3 is 450. Toji's is 405. So I rest my case. Yes, he has his self buffs, but they take too long in sweep tab. They take too long because either you're stacking damage for like 10 billion turns, or you're not stacking at all for the self buffs and you get nothing. So yeah, no, it's bad. So this is my top 25. Let me know what you think. I'd say it's pretty accurate. A lot of people were agreeing with me. No one was really disagreeing. There's some big changes in this ranking. But yeah, this is going to be the last ranking we do until Tower in 2 weeks. So, you know, if you're seeing a lot of tier lists, maybe it's because there's a lot of units releasing. And guess what? A lot of content releasing finally.